Welcome back, everybody. Hope you all had a nice break. Okay, let's move on, and we're going to talk about SAML. This is kind of a big topic, actually. It's one of the bigger features that we have in version 17.1. It's one of those that I definitely pre-recorded, and I'm just going to live narrate over because there's a lot of steps to get through. I always like to start with the diagram so we can kind of get a big picture overview of what's happening. So from a high level, you as service providers want to get out of the business of managing end user accounts, right? Users coming and going at your various customers, changing passwords, etc., things like that. You'd like to be out of that business. And the customers themselves, they would like to be able to use their own accounts, right? Maybe their own email address and their own password to log in and not have to keep track of a second one to get to the services that you're providing. And that's where SAML comes in. SAML is kind of that full-on integration. It starts with a third-party kind of identity provider provided by Azure, Okta, or SafeNet. It ties in the customer's directory and authentication services to that, the identity providers, and it also provides your configuration in your Active Directory to the identity provider. So it's all neatly tied in together. So why do you still have to have your own Active Directory if SAML and the customer is handling it as well? Well, think what they're logging into. It's a remote desktop server, or terminal server if you prefer. It's a Windows server. It requires Active Directory for authentication. You also have to have a user for everybody logging in. There's just no way around that. That's how Active Directory works. But the customers don't need to know about that exact user account, right? We're going to do some mapping between that so that the passwords and everything is managed on the customer side. And we do that through an entity that we have in RAS called the enrollment server, which ties into SAML. If we take a little closer look at the enrollment server, like I said, it's just a separate component within RAS. It deploys from the RAS console like other RAS components, right? Go into enrollment servers under farm and click the little blue plus and push it out. It's a little bit different in that it must run on its own server with no other RAS components. Okay, it won't even let you install it on a PA or a gateway or anything like that, like the other RAS components will let you double up. This one won't even let you do that. Also, think about what it's doing, right? It should be a secure, dedicated server, similar to a domain controller or certificate authority. And a couple other nice things about it is you can use multiple enrollment servers for high availability, right? So you can just deploy another one. They'll run active, so they're all doing work for you. In case one fails, the others will take over. They do have to share the same registration key, and there's a few other little quirks and things about them, but it's all in the documentation, and you'll see where all that is when we go through and do the demonstration. So let's move on, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the prerequisites before we kind of get into the actual demonstration and setting all this up. The Parallels Remote Application Server Admin Guide has all of this information. I've pulled a lot of it out of that. There's also a knowledge base article, but I actually like the admin guide a little bit better. It's got a little bit more detail, presents a little bit better, and so forth. But from a prerequisite standpoint, let's first look at your Microsoft Active Directory. This is your Active Directory where the RAS components are installed. As I mentioned, we do have to install, or create rather, two users, an enrollment agent user and an NLE user. The enrollment agent user is used to enroll certificates to the RAS enrollment server on behalf of the user, and then the NLE user actually will be used to initiate the connection to the RDSH instance or VDI desktop, whatever you're doing. That NLE user is a little interesting, right? It kind of has to have two almost diametrically opposing roles. It needs to be a member of the remote desktop users group so that it can log in on behalf of the user. It uses a virtual smart card to do that. But we also don't want people to hijack this and then kind of use that by itself. And so we also would like to set up a group policy that would deny login through remote desktop services. And we'll do both of these in the demonstration. You're going to have a Microsoft Enterprise Certification Authority running with certain templates, Enrollment Agent Certificate template and the Smart Card Logon Certificate template. And obviously you'll have to have a third-party identity provider. We're not going to spend too much time with this, although I'm going to go ahead and leverage the Azure AD when we do the demo. And then your domain controllers, they're going to have some domain controller certificates, and they're going to have to support smart card authentication. What's the deal with the smart cards? Why do I keep bringing that up? Well, that's kind of the magic that we're doing under the covers, right? We're injecting a virtual smart card into Active Directory on behalf of the user, and that's what actually allows the login process to happen, is by using virtual smart cards. All right, so let's go ahead and configure the whole thing soup to nuts. I've already got a RAS farm configured using what I'm going to call my local AD, and then we've got I'm going to use Azure AD as the identity provider. So the first thing is to remember to create those two service accounts for RAS inside my local AD, if you will. That's what my RAS farm is joined to. So I'll go ahead and create a new user, and this will be the enrollment agent user. All right, so we'll just call this, I don't know, SSO. Let's see. My mouse fixed here. SSO. About maybe I'll do like SSO agent. That's it. So that'll be the enrollment agent user. I'm calling it SSO agent. Let me go ahead and give him a password. And then I'll go ahead and confirm that password. And then this is an account I really don't want password expiring on me, so I'll do that. All right, that one's done. So let's go ahead and create the other one, and I'll do the NLA user here. All right, so I'll go ahead and just create the new user there, and NLA, and you know, just be consistent. I'll call this one, I guess, NLA agent. Okay. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing by setting the passwords for him here. Let's hope I don't fat finger the confirm password. Hopefully that'll work. And this is another one too. I really don't want the password expiring or changing on me. It'll take things down. Next. Hey, look at that. Good. Finished. No fat fingering. Okay, so remember that SSO agent. That's the enrollment agent user. It's the account used to enroll certificates to the RAS enrollment server on behalf of the authenticated user. So what I need to do is go ahead and delegate control for that. So I'll just right click on the user's container and delegate control just to the whole container, just to my little farm here. I could do this at the organizational unit level if I wanted to keep everybody in the OU, but my little lab, I'll just do it right here, just in the whole container. All right, so for the name in here, that was SSO agent. Okay, that's in because that's what I named the enrollment agent. And then I need to let me see, let the following objects. So I want to manage just the user objects, right? So that's kind of what I'm going through here. This is all in the documentation. Like I said, if you follow through, actually I have a knowledge base for this. But I'm going to go down and do just the user objects because that's all I really want this being able to manage on. And then let's see, I'll check property specific here. Yeah, I can talk. And then this is the fun part. This is a huge list, and I need to find two specific properties that I'm kind of getting down to. It's that read-write alt security entities. All right, so let's see. I know they're in here somewhere. Like I said, it's a massive list. I wish they had like a search or something, right? There we go. Read alt security identities. I'll do read-write and then finish. Okay. So that part's done for that user. And then what I'm going to do next, let's see, all right, just kind of going through the notes here, is, oh yeah, the NLA agent user, right? Remember, this one has to have those kind of two diametrically opposing roles. So the first thing I'm going to do is make it a member of the remote desktop users group on my domain. There we go. That way it can, like I said, log in on behalf of my users. It won't actually log in, it's going to do it on behalf of them. It'll inject the smart card, but that's done. And then because I don't want people or somebody to actually be able to log in with this user, I don't want it actually logging in interactively, I'm going to go into group policy here and set group policy to deny logon through remote desktop services. So go ahead and create a GPO. I'll call that one RAS SAML. And then I'll go ahead and link it here and then edit. And let's see, so I'm just looking to see where this one is. Policies, and then it's under, I think it's under Windows settings. Yep. You can pull this out a little bit so I can see. Then security settings, local policies, user right assignments, and then here somewhere I'll see deny access. Deny logon through, there it is, deny logon through remote desktop services. So yes, I wanted to find this. It's kind of a backwards one. Yeah, deny all login, yes. And here's my user, my NLA user. So that's done. All right, so now they've got kind of both roles that are set in place. Okay, so now I'm going to configure the certificate authority templates. So to do that, let me go ahead and launch the MMC, Microsoft Management Console here. All right, and then we'll remove a snap-in. And then what I want to add is the certificate templates, because that's what I'm going to be managing. Okay, so that's good. Let's go into certificate templates, and then I'm going to create the enrollment agent template. So I'll click on enrollment, the enrollment agent there. I want to duplicate this template actually. That's the way you change it. So I've duplicated it, and then we'll give it a new name and everything. So, all right. So I'll go over to the General tab, and it's Copy of Enrollment Agent. Let me change that name, and it needs to be PRLS Enrollment Agent. And that'll also fix the template name as well. There we go, Enrollment Agent. Validity period is 2 weeks, renewal is 6 weeks. Publish it in Active Directory, but don't check that box that says do not automatically enroll. Okay, that looks good. And then the next tab I'm going over is, let me go to the cryptography tab. Yeah, okay. So go to the cryptography tab, and then requests must use one of the following providers. It's determined by, that role. So I'm going to uncheck that one, and then go down to the Microsoft Strong cryptographic provider, and I want to move this all the way to the top. Yeah, so just check that one and make sure it's on the top. Okay, just looking at my notes here. I said there's a lot of steps to SAML, right? And then I'm going to go to the security tab, and then here I'm going to add the enrollment agent user. Remember we called that one SSO agent. So I'll check the names, click OK, and this guy has to have read and enroll permissions here. So I need to allow those too. Right. Yep, that's it. So I'll go ahead and click OK. There we go. That one's done, and now I need to create the smart card logon certificate template. So back to my list here, and there's smart card logon. I'm going to right click, I need to duplicate the template. And then let's go to the General tab, and instead of copy of smart card logon, let's change that to parallels PRLS smart card. And then validity period, smart card logon. There we go. And then the validity period, 1 year, 6 weeks for the renewal. That's good. And I think that's it. Okay, so we can move over to the cryptography, and then frequent must use one of these. Request must use one of these following providers. And again, the one I want to use here is the Microsoft Strong cryptographic provider, just like before, and I'll move this all the way up to the top again, just like we did. And in the security tab, I need to add the SSO agent, the enrollment user. So do that right there. And that one also needs, this time it needs, read and enroll. And then I'll look back at the issuance requirements. The number of authorized signatures is 1. Application policy, and then for any purpose, user certificate request agent. That's what I'd like for that one. Okay. And those settings are good, so I can go ahead and click apply and OK. All right, so now let's go ahead and issue the certificate templates. I could have done it one at a time, but I'm going to do them both. So back into MMC, and then I'll add and remove a snap-in, and this time I'm going to actually add the certificate authority. So put that on here, and now I've got this tool going, and then I go into the, let everything catch up a minute. I'll go into this, and then drill down to the certificate templates, and then I'm going to create a new certificate template to issue. and I should be able to pick my two. So I'll start with the PRLS enrollment agent and click OK. That's in there. And then let's go ahead and let's do the other one. So right click in New, Certificate Templates to Issue, and I'll go down and get the other one, right? The PRLS Smart Card Logon. So there they are. They're both there. So that's been done. I've issued both of them. I can go ahead and close and get out of this. Okay, so now I want to restart the Active Directory certificate services. So I'll go into Manage and Services from the Server Manager here. And then, let's see, I guess it's what? Oh, Active Directory, so it's probably near the top, right? There we go. Let me expand that out just to make sure I'm getting the right one. Yep, Active Directory, Certificate Services, and I'll go ahead and restart that. Okay, so it's time actually to go over to the RAS console and we'll set up an enrollment server. I actually have a server all ready to go, as you can see, so I don't have to deploy Windows or anything for it. So just farm enrollment servers, click on the little blue plus, just like we do so many things. Exactly like that. I'll type in the name of the server as ESO1. Yep, I'll go ahead and go next. It's going to look for an agent, tell me it's not there. That's the timeout, right? Of course it's not there. I haven't deployed it yet. So there it is. So since it's not there, I'll go ahead and install it. And it'll take a few minutes. I'm actually going to speed this up real quick, so it's just going to zoom right on by for us so we don't have to wait. Okay, there we go. Look at that, done. Okay, so I'll go ahead and click on Done. The agent says it's there. I'll go ahead and click on OK. And then we always click Apply. Now, this would come back and tell me it's not validated yet because I haven't done the AD integration. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll go to the AD tab, to Certificate Authority. This information is already in here for us. And then I want to add the enrollment agent, right? That's our SSO agent, right? The enrollment agent user. So I'll go ahead and put that one in. And then the NLA user, well, hey, that's the NLA agent user we just created, right? Go figure. So let me look that one up. NLA agent, and no, having to browse through the domain. There we go. Okay, NLA agent user, and then I'll go ahead and put the password in for that one. And then if I click on validate, I get this error message. It's just a normal informational message. It takes a minute. I got to click apply first, of course, right? And then it takes a minute for this to sync up. So there's that invalid I was talking about. I just refresh it and it should come back and it's okay. And now if I go back into the AD integration and click on validate, right, we're all good. Perfect. Okay, so now let's go back to Active Directory. This is again my local AD, if you will, not the Azure AD. And I'm going to go to that GPO that I created earlier, RAS SAML, that would deny logon to the NLA agent user. And what I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add the, let me select computers here, make sure it's looking at the right object. I'm going to add my remote application server. I just have one in my farm for a demo here. I'm going to add that to this. I could actually do this all through an organizational unit and link it that way, but for here I'm just going to do this, and then I want to make sure that's enforced so that that's taking effect. Okay, so let's go back to the RAS console. I'm going to configure the integration with our identity provider, which is Azure. So connections, SAML, hit the little blue plus. Let me go ahead and give it a name. I'll just call it RAS SAML. Remember, SAML uses HTML5 only, so I can pick a theme that I want this to apply to. I'll just use the default theme because that's all I have in the lab, but I could pick any theme that I created. And now I need to copy the address over here. So let me go back over to Azure AD, and actually we need to create SAML. So I'll go into Active Directory on Azure. This is the Azure side, of course. And I'm going to create a new enterprise application. We've got a bunch of them running already in our environment, but I'm going to create a new application, and it's a non-gallery app. And the name I'll give it, let's see, how about just RAS Lab Certification. There we go. And I'll go ahead and add. That'll pop up in just a second. There we go. And then I'm going to assign the users and groups. That's done. And I'm going to set up single sign-on. So let's do the single sign-on, and we're choosing SAML here, of course. and then let's just kind of work our way through. So right here you'll see the Federation URL. Let's go ahead and copy that. Usually we can just copy and paste this in, and I'll go back to that screen that I left up inside RAS and do that. Paste it, click next, and yeah, that didn't work. Okay, sometimes that happens. I think we're still kind of figuring that out. It's not a big deal if it does. It'll time out here. What I'll need to do though is go back over to Azure and download the federated metadata XML. So let me download that, and then I can just import it in, and this will work. I'm not sure what's going on with that copy paste. Like I said, I think that's still something that's being massaged a little bit. So let me choose here the upload from the file, and then let me browse over and find where I downloaded that file. Right, bouncing back and forth between RDP windows and virtual windows and all that. It's always fun. Okay, there it is. That's where we put it. So let me put that in there, click open, and then I'll click next and see that worked. So here we are, and I've got my log on and log out URLs right there. So I'll click finish, and then we click apply. Okay, and then I'll go into the properties, and then let's click on that SP. This is the Azure load balancer address that I'm going to put in here. The reason it's the Azure load balancer address is that's the one that was already configured, so we'll just use that because that's what people are doing. So let me go ahead and put that IP in there, and then it fills out a string of URLs for me. I'm going to need each of those, and I can copy them each in turn. So I'll copy the first one, and then I'll go into the RAS, the SAML configuration here, and I'll paste the identity provider, identity entity ID in here that I got from the console in RAS. That's there. Okay, and then I'll go back over to my environment in RAS, and I'll get the reply URL, and I'll go ahead and paste that there. All right, and then next would be the logon URL, which I'll get, and I'll paste it here. The relay state URL, by the way, actually isn't necessary, but we usually just paste the sign-on in there as well. So you can just do that twice if you'd like. And then for the logout URL, I will put that in the logout URL. Imagine that, right? I love it when things match up. Okay, so that part's done. And I'll click save, and then while that's going on, we'll see that now the URLs match the RAS settings. Okay, so next I want to go into the user attributes and claims and pick a claim name. I mean, you could select for the type of login you want. I think most people would just prefer to use the email address, so that's what we'll do. If you look at the knowledge base article that we have here, actually what I want to copy is the user principal name, not the user mail name. I'm not sure why, but the developers do, and it's in the KB article. So I'll go back over here to the RAS console, go to attributes and custom, and then for mail, I'll take out that little email in the custom attribute, and I'm going to plug in that user principal name, and then go ahead and click OK, and then we always click apply, right? Okay, within that, let's go back to my local Active Directory, the non-Azure Active Directory, and I need to create some users. Remember, it's a remote desktop server. It's joined to the domain. Every user, even if it's coming from a foreign directory, I guess, like this is, it has to be unique for this to really work all the way through. Right? If I just had a single dummy user that was logging in all over the place, then every single user would be logging into the remote desktop server with the same user, and that would be a mess, right? Get the same profile and everything. One user to one account, even though I'm passing it through. So I'll just create a test user. I don't have to worry about the password here so much. I can create just a random password that never expires, because remember, we're actually going to be injecting a smart card, a virtual smart card here for the login. So that'll be my test user. I'd have to do this for every user that I have. And then the way I associate it, though, is I go into the attributes and add the email. And I'm going to add my Azure AD email here, right? Not anything to do with this domain at all, but my Azure AD email in there. That'll create the hook that ties this in together. Okay, one last little thing to clean up here. Those of you that were eagle-eyed might have noticed that I skipped the very first step when I set up the SAML on Azure, and that was the add group and add the assignment. What I need to do here actually is take my Azure AD users, and I'm going to use admin for one, and then I'll grab my VDI desktop. Even though this is remote desktop, the users are in that group. And what I'm doing is I'm granting these Azure user accounts permission to use the SAML app. So don't forget that step, right? So I'm doing that here, and I'm clicking assign, and you can see that now I've added both those to the group, or both those groups to the permissions. And if I look in this one group and look at the members, you'll see the email address I used matches this one. So it is a member of the group. So it works all the way through, and it does the handoff and everything else, and it should work, right? So let's find out. Moment of truth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll reinitiate the login to the web page here. And notice it gives me not a RAS logon, but ultimately I'm going to get the SAML logon, right, that we've been seeing. So that should be kind of familiar to the users in that regard. Go ahead and type the password and log in. And again, this is the password for that Azure AD email account. Nothing to do with anything we've created in your local, quote, local AD or in RAS. So I'll go ahead and sign in, and there's my app. I've just published a desktop off the terminal server is all we did. I could use the Parallels client integrated here, but I'm actually gonna, let's just launch this in HTML5 only, because that's always kind of cool. I always kind of like this interface. And when you go full screen, you really can't even tell that you're running in a tab in the browser, right? I see the Parallels logo, and that tells me success. So hey, we did it. Woohoo! All right, and yeah, you can see I can move around and use this just like a regular desktop, right? We were successful. We've logged in, like I said. Woohoo! So let's break out of this, and we'll look back at the RAS console, and I'm going to show you who actually logged in: farm, already session host. And then we're going to go to sessions and look at that. You can see that it actually is that test user. It has nothing to do with that. So you might actually want to name this something that's a little bit more useful than test user. I did it just so we can see. So very easy to set up, huh? Super simple, not complex at all. If only. It's just the nature of SAML. So to be honest, the first time we recorded this, we got an error, and I had to go back to the magic of video and connect, or fix it. But this is what we got. We logged in. I want to show you kind of what happens so you can get an idea about how to things that can go wrong here. So let's go back in time. So we logged in, we did this, and then we kind of went through the single sign-on piece. We got this far to the desktop, and then when we launched the desktop, right, through HTML5, denied. Why is this denied? And you got to think, okay, is it certificates? Is it something I did in group policy? No, this was super simple. We had forgot to add that NLA agent user to the remote desktop users group. Don't forget the basics. It's the basics right there. That was what happened. So now if I go back and do it, I don't have to log out and back on. This is taking part inside the local Active Directory. Okay, so very easy to kind of miss a step. It's just the nature of SAML. We've got it all documented very closely. There's knowledge base articles for both Okta and Azure that take you pretty far into those identity providers, how to do this. So those are there, and we've also got some other knowledge base articles as well. Other identity providers will work, so it's not just limited to those two. Those are just the two that we have documentation on currently. So a couple of quick tips I've seen with SAML is don't forget that it requires HTML5 as your authentication, right? I can't use the client directly. I have to use the HTML5 interface for the login because SAML is a web-based application. Now, I can use the client and take full advantage of that, but I just have to use the HTML5 integrated client. We saw that earlier. Remember, when I logged in, we did the right click, and there was the option to use the client or the HTML5 only, but the interface that the user is presented with is the HTML5 interface, and it's tied to themes. So you actually could have a SAML theme and a non-SAML theme if you wanted to. And the client does have to be version 17.1 or later. The other one I see, which is very related to this, is sometimes people will see that Parallels client-based SSO. That has nothing to do with SAML, right? They see kind of this interface, single sign-on. SAML talks about single sign-on, same thing. Well, first of all, you shouldn't be using the client. Remember, SAML is HTML5 only. It's a web application. But this is just the client piece. If you install single sign-on using the Parallels client directly, it just uses the local Active Directory. Whatever the client is joined to, it will pass those credentials into RAS. That's what that is for. has nothing whatsoever to do with SAML. So just don't get confused there. Okay, and then the last little tidbit is, you notice we're doing this with RDSH. That's what's currently supported. According to the documentation, VDI with SAML and RAS is limited. I'm not sure exactly what limited is by, but it's what's in the documentation. I do know that we will be adding in VDI support in the not too distant future. But other than that, that's it for SAML.